like building in The Sims can be kind of intimidating for people a lot of the time, especially if you don't build very often. It's kind of difficult to build an entire house and make it look nice and make sense and also be functional for your Sims and fit all of your needs. I really enjoy building now, but when I was younger, like way before I had a YouTube channel, I never really built full exteriors myself. Mostly I would download houses built by other people and then renovate them or refurnish or redecorate the insides because I didn't think I was very good at building the exterior, so I just kind of wouldn't try. And I know a lot of you watch my videos to try and learn about building in this game. I really don't think I'm an expert and my builds are not like amazing by any means, but I think I'm a decent enough builder in The Sims, and I really do try to give like tips and tricks. I've made tutorial videos in the past, and today the intention of this video is to make something that's really easy to follow along if you wanted to build along with me. So I'm gonna try to go kind of slow and explain what I'm doing and walk you through the process so that you can also try to create this build in your game, and then hopefully maybe you can learn something from it and try to apply it to future builds. So I have made quite a few tutorial videos in the past where I talk about tips and give you like all of the hotkeys and cheats and things like that. I will link that down below for you if you want to go back and watch those. This video is more of a build along, so you don't have to build with me, but if you want to, I'm gonna be on this lot, this Optimist Outlook 40 by 30 lot in Newcrest. I'm also gonna use just the base game today so that everybody can copy it easily. I'm also playing on PC, so I can't provide a ton of insight on like console specifics for the console tools, but you should be able to copy what I'm doing on your console as well. We all have the same game, we just have different controls for it. Okay, so first things first, we have to pick what we're going to build. I'm kind of thinking that I want to make a big-ish family house. I'm imagining something that could be used for like a legacy challenge or like sort of big Sims gameplay. We're building this for function and less so like just to build. I imagine if you're watching this, you probably mostly only build when you need something for your Sims, so we're trying to make something like that. So at this point, I usually try and think, okay, so my Sims have 3 kids, I want an office, we'll need a bedroom for the adults. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe we need 4 or 5 rooms in this house. Maybe grandma lives there and you need to have like a granny suite for her in the backyard. It's always good to start thinking about what your needs are. And then if you're not really a builder, I think it can be really helpful to find reference photos online. All of the builds that I do now mostly come from just like inside my head, but I also often look at reference photos and try and like mash them together to get an idea. But for those of you that are just starting out, finding a picture of a house that you like in real life and then trying to recreate it is a really good way to start. So for example, I found this kind of cool house on this random floor plan website. It looks a little bit intimidating, but I'm gonna walk you through all of the roofing pieces and how to lay all of this out. And it's nice because they give me quite a few angles of what this house looks like, and then it also has the floor plan on here. And I think that having the floor plan is probably the biggest aid to someone who is a newer builder, because oftentimes people in my comments will talk about how hard they find it to lay out their Sims house. They look at this big empty box and really struggle with where to put all of the rooms. So looking at a real life house and kind of just seeing generally how it's laid out. In this case, they've got like all the bedrooms on one side. They've got a kind of interesting shape, almost like an L shape for the main living space. A lot of times in real life in these new build houses, you'll see like an entryway with like a study and then like a living room on either side. In this case, there's a study and a bedroom. But it's always nice to just look at these floor plans and kind of see what they're doing and then try to mimic it in your game. Even if you don't copy it exactly, it's nice to maybe have this as a starting point to figure out where stuff should go. Especially if you find a house that you like, you may as well just do what they did because they already figured it out. The main concern here though is just that real life doesn't really apply to The Sims. The scale of real life stuff doesn't really fit in exactly in The Sims 4. We've got a weird grid system that doesn't really make as much sense as oftentimes this stuff does. So just be prepared to pivot when the scale isn't really working out exactly as you expect it to. So this house is also quite wide and it has a garage, and we don't really need to have a garage. You could totally add one if you want to. I often find that garage spaces in The Sims are nice to have, like, well, pretend garages, to be clear. There's no real garages, but it's nice to have this sort of thing because you can put like the giant microscope or like the cupcake machine, all these big items that don't really fit anywhere. It can be nice to have a fake garage to just shove all that stuff in there. But we're gonna start now by building a decent sized box, and that's gonna be like the main shell of our building. Don't worry about where on the lot you put it. Just put it like kind of in the middle because you can always move stuff if you need to. You can always scoot it closer or further back or whatever you need. Actually, scratch that box idea. I want you to try and recreate all of these boxes in this order. This is not how I would recommend you build a house normally, but I just want you to see this so that you have the shape, and then I'll explain what I've done. So over here on the right, start with a box that's 5 tiles wide and 17 tiles long. That's gonna cost 1,020 simoleons to build that wall. It's like 1,020 by 300, which is kind of a weird way of describing it, but you can hook that box up together. And then inset by 1, put a 3 by something, I don't even know. This is 720 by 180 simoleons. The next box is 420 simoleons wide. That is such a weird way of describing it. And that goes down 3 units from the one it's right from. And then you put a 4 by 3 box right in front of it. Offset by 1 next to that, we're gonna get a 240 by 480 simoleon box. When I say that, draw the box like this. Draw the walls, and then draw the walls and just connect them together. Then there's a 2 by 6 box that is about 120 by 360 next to that, kind of like right in the middle. This part is gonna be basically our fake garage area. It's a 240 by 480 box, and then there's 120 by 420 right next to that. Okay, weird way of getting us to this point, but hopefully by now, maybe you could pause the video and you can try and copy these boxes exactly. This is not normally how I would have drawn it. I just wanted to get you to a point where you had the same thing as me, because like looking at this is really weird. This is very confusing and not helpful, so I did the lines so that you could figure it out. What I've done here, and what I recommend that you do in the future, is start with one big box and then add to it. So what I did was start with this big box, and then I drew this big box through it, and I just kept going, adding basically like little bump outs around the place. I knew I wanted to have a weird connection hallway right here. I knew I wanted to have the garage be kind of an interesting shape. And so this is kind of how I would actually build it. It's just harder to like figure this out and copy it. But that's always the tip that I give, is just build boxes and then add to them. But I always like my houses to have one like central core rectangle. In this case, it's right here. And that's also where your main roof goes, but we'll get to that later. Now I want to walk you through how to do the floor plan. And if you ever want to delete walls like this, where you like draw it to delete it, you can hold control and then redraw the wall and it deletes it. I do this all the time. It's way easier than like individually bulldozing stuff, and it's less room for error as well. Now we're gonna kind of copy a little bit with the general floor plan of that original house, right? So we know that we want most of this right side to be the bedrooms. So I might even just draw a big wall all the way through there. I'm thinking this room in the back is gonna be the biggest. I might make it about this size. So that's like 360 by 300. And then I think that this room right here could be a good bathroom for it. We can have it be attached. So this becomes the primary bedroom. And a lot of times when you're looking at floor plans, they'll have closets. I don't like to add those in my Sims game. I just don't find it that useful. It's nice for realism, but if you're building on a budget or like trying to build something functional for your Sims, I don't really think it's worth worrying about adding closets in. This next room is gonna be a little bit smaller. We're gonna make it like 240 by 300. This is like a 4 by 5 sized room. And then I'm gonna go forward 2 tiles. This is gonna become kind of like a hallway for us. And then this room in the front that ends up being 5 by 5 is the next bedroom. So I want you to delete this wall in the hallway and then draw like a little bathroom in too. So now we have 2 kids' bedrooms and a bathroom right here on this side. And then this area kind of serves as like a little hallway entrance for them. So you can put the doors in anywhere you'd like. I think it's nice to have the 3 doors kind of off in a little nook like that. Sometimes I like to do that with my other bedrooms too. We could even make a little nook for the primary bedroom as well. And then we can put their door in there. That also saves us a nice big wall right here in case we wanted to maybe put the TV on there or something, but we'll get there too. We're not there yet. So next step, we have to add in the study. So we want this to be kind of a small space filling in this little bump out. I think it could be like a 4 by 4. That's where the office is going to go. And this is kind of giving us a nice space to work with because we can have this area be the front door. I might just put in this nice base game one. I always like this door the best. But you can see they've now got a formal entryway right here. You've got access to the bedrooms and access to that study area. Sometimes in these sort of rooms, I like to put an archway for the study. I think it's always nice to have some nice open space. And then you have a tiny bit of room right here if you wanted to put a table and like put your Sims keys and like a lamp or something right there. And now we have to worry about the entire rest of the house. So we've got a whole bunch of weird space going on. I'm picturing that we draw a big wall right here and kind of block off the garage. And I want this living space to be kind of wide open. I want like one big kitchen, living, dining room all together in here. And I think that this little bump out makes for a really nice spot for the kitchen. That's why I pushed this wall out a tiny bit, is so I could put the kitchen in there. We don't have to lay out the exact kitchen just yet. I never furnish at this stage. I kind of just go through and figure out where stuff is gonna go. I'll put like filler furniture in basically. So right now I already know I want to have the kitchen here. So I'll just put some generic base game cheap counters there as like placeholders. And I also know that I want to have the living room in this section. So I'm gonna try and get a big rug and then just use that as a placeholder too. Sometimes at this stage I'll put a couple couches down, maybe the fireplace, maybe a TV. I don't really intend on keeping this stuff and like putting it exactly here, but it helps me to lay out where I want it to go and then kind of visualize the size of the space. It's always hard to look at a box and then like know how big it is. I always find that rugs are a good tool for that too. This rug in particular is a good size to like have adequate walking space around a bed. So sometimes when I'm trying to figure out the size of a room, I'll just put that rug down and then I know that it's gonna fit a bed nicely. So you can use that kind of as like a tester in all of those rooms to know that it's gonna work. And then if I were you, I would put the dining table somewhere in here. Sometimes it's nice to put them in kind of like a little nook like this. You can sort of put it wherever works when you're actually furnishing. You could even like steal a bit of space from the study so that we have more room for the dining table if you wanted to. And now we have to think about the rest of the floor plan, this garage area. So what we're gonna do is delete this wall right here. We wanna have like a little 2-tile wide hallway again. And I'm gonna turn this area into a bathroom. So we've got a small bathroom. It could be a laundry room. In total, this is a 3-bed and 3-bathroom house. So you don't really need this extra bathroom, but we have the space, so you might as well include it. And then if you did want, you could have this area become that fake garage that we talked about. In real life, the garage is on the side of this house, so the driveway would be like up here, and then you would turn in and go into the garage this way. So you could do that if you wanted to. You could keep it like a garage. I keep moving the lot so we can have more space and like see everything. But you could also turn this into more bedrooms if you would like to. If you're gonna do that, I would almost encourage you to like keep most of this hallway and split it up like this, because you could get 2 more bedrooms and then have them share a bathroom. This is called a Jack and Jill bathroom. You put like a door into each, and then you could have 2 more bedrooms, and in total it's a 5-bedroom house. It could pass as a 6-bedroom house if you wanted this office to be a bedroom too. So it's kind of just up to you and how you want to lay it out. I'm just trying to give you some options and like give you some ideas of how you might split things up. Real quick, I'm gonna go through and just put some tile down in the rooms that I'm classing as bathrooms, and then I'm gonna put carpet down in all of the bedrooms just because I think it makes it a little bit more obvious what we're working with. And now we have to start thinking about the roof. So in this case, we've got a very complicated roof to do. I want to remind you again of that original box that we talked about. This was like that main original box on the building, and we want to find that again and use that as our roof starting point. That's going to be like our biggest main roof. So when you're looking at that up here, that big main roof, oh, that's weird. That big main roof is like this area. This is that main starting point. I'm going to take one of these just plain gabled roofs and put that all the way across the top there. I'm going to take another one of those gabled roofs and I'm going to put it here on this little front bump out over the study, and then copy that again and use it over here on top of the bedrooms. This is a good point also for you to raise the house up onto a foundation if you want to. You totally don't have to, but if you'd like it to be on one, now's a good time. We'll come back to this front part. I want to move over to the side again for a second. So we're going to take another big one of these gabled roofs and we're going to find the main section here too, which will be like, why does it not let me draw these here? We want to have the main roof be in like this section, right? Like this. So we're going to copy this roof and then just fill this whole area in and cover that whole big giant section we talked about. This is a very wide house. It's very like long and wide. And then we'll use one of those gabled roofs again right here in the middle. Now in the back, we're going to do some very similar stuff. I'm going to take this roof and I'm going to make it all the way across here. And you kind of have some options. If you wanted to, you could totally have this be like visible from the front, those gables. Then there's like a proper roof above the whole garage. I will often just leave them all at the default height. And I always want all of the gables that are facing the same direction to be the same angle. So I wouldn't like make this one low and this one tall. I think it looks better if they all match, if the angles are all the same. But I do think it's fine, and I oftentimes will raise up the gable on opposite sides. So maybe on the side, I'll make the gable be like 2 tiles taller. So these two are the same angle and they're the same angle, but all of these are a different side and still the same angle, but different from that one. Does that make sense? I'm making this very confusing. As you're doing this, you might find some things like this where like, oh, the roof was too big and now it's poking through. I like to just make sure I've tucked them all into the main roof. I want to have them all kind of hidden like that. A good example of like a weird part where things are not so hidden is like over here, we've got a weird gap. I'll just drag this out so we can fill it in completely and it's all the way covering the whole side. If you don't like that and you don't want to have this this roof piece right here, there are ways to fix that. What you're gonna do is drag the roof all the way to the end and then hold shift and then take this little triangle so you can do just this side at a time and drag that in. That way it kind of lines up at the corner. You can do the same thing over here. And then if you copy the roof again, because we're gonna wanna fill in this gap next, you can copy that roof piece and then delete the sides. And that way you can kind of hide it from view on the side of the building here. A lot of times roofing in The Sims and like trying to make roofing look good requires using a lot of the same roof piece over and over again. Like basically just copying and pasting. So this roof right here is 2 roofs. This roof right here is 3 roofs. So you're gonna have to do a lot of roofing and just a lot of manipulating of pieces to make it look nice. But in the end, it looks kind of cool like that, I think. But it's also easier to just drag it all the way across. In this case, they match up, so you could totally do it that way if you wanted to. You could also, if you wanted to, maybe extend this a little bit. That saves you the roof stress, and it makes it a little bit wider right there. That does also give you a little bit of extra room in all of the bedrooms. I don't really think that I want to do that, but if you wanted the wall to be less flat here, you could try something like that too. Sometimes you just gotta play around and like mess around with bump outs. Half of Sims building is just adding bump outs. Okay, but now we've got kind of a weird looking front. So we want to try and do something on top of this porch right here. Sometimes I like to make porches only 2 wide. In this case, a 3 wide porch fits really nicely with like the edges of the walls. So we could try that. Sometimes I'll determine the size of a porch based on where the columns can go, which maybe isn't a good idea, but oftentimes I'll take a column and like figure out where I'm gonna put them. And then if they don't like line up nicely like this, where there's kind of a weird space, I might even just make it smaller on purpose and just like commit to it, just so I can have the columns looking better from the front of the building. I can't say if that's good advice or not, but that's what I do a lot. I was planning on putting the staircase right here directly in front of the door, and then you could have a really nice little walkway up to the front door from here. It's looking a bit long, so I might even want to scoot this closer to the front of the lot, and we can scoot it like way far into the front corner, because that gives us a huge backyard to work with and also gives you a bit more room in case you wanted to have a little driveway to go into your fake garage. If you're gonna do a fake garage, I'd maybe encourage you to just not bother with a foundation. You can still make the front look nice by putting in fences, but this way you don't have to worry about terrain manipulation. I don't worry about terrain manipulation. I barely ever use terrain tools like this to like raise and lower the ground. This video is meant to be like beginner followable, and I think that terrain tools are maybe not so beginner. If you wanted to, you could also try and make the garage maybe look a little bit flatter. It might be interesting to try and do something like this and have the garage be like this wide, because then you can have the garage door be in the front of the building, which might fit better on the lot. I'm just trying to give you some options to work with, but I think for now, I might keep the garage door in the front here. So what I just did is like delete the fanciness and make this into a plain rectangle. So that's about 480 wide by 360 long. Did I say that backwards? Whatever, 480 by 360. You can see the tiles. You can count the squares. Sorry for changing the build again. That was mean of me. But if you wanted to make this into a garage, sometimes what I'll do, especially if you just have the base game, is take a couple of columns and like put them on the sides. Then I'll take like maybe a panel texture and use it in the middle. And then sometimes I'll put little tiny windows, like these windows up at the top, because it almost kind of looks like it could be a garage door. Obviously it's not. It's just paint. It's not really a garage door, but I'll use that at times. If you happen to have any packs, there's a door from Snowy Escape. You're gonna have to make the walls medium height just to place it, but I think that this Snowy Escape door looks a lot like it could be a garage door. And if you have bb.move objects on, you can place medium wall height doors on short wall height. And as you can see, it only clips a tiny bit. So oftentimes when I'm doing garages, I'll use that door as like a fake garage door, because then it's still a door, but it has like the appropriate width to look like a garage door. There's also a couple debug garage doors that might work for you. To get these, we're gonna need a few cheats. The first is testing cheats on, and then bb.show hidden objects. That's the first debug cheat. And then bb.show live edit objects. That's the second debug cheat. And then if you search debug in your little build catalog, you can see a lot of stuff. It's a little bit overwhelming at times, but if you scroll through here, you can find some really cool things like fake cars that you can put in your driveway. My game is really lagging now that I just did that, so I'm kind of scaring myself a little bit right now. I might quickly save so I don't lose this. That doesn't normally happen. That's not normal. You're gonna have to scroll down quite far. I just scrolled past these weird fake cats. A couple rows down from there, you'll see this little debug item. This is like a proper debug garage door. So if you wanted to, you could use this. It has a couple colors too. You could always put this down and then have that be your garage door. It's not functional, it won't open, but it does look like a garage door. This might even actually fit better if we had like a skinnier garage door section. So if you wanted to, you could add that back. It's really up to you. Sometimes building is a lot of experimenting. We could get like a little section back and then put the garage door on there. You're gonna wanna like alt place it back because it looks like it's not really fitting properly, but that could be kind of cool. You could get a garage that way. All right, back to the roof for a second because I'm very distracted. We wanna do the roof here on our little porch now. So first, click on that floor that you've placed on the room. I've just got like a plain floor tile placed there. It's one of these things, these flat squares, and I've fit it to fit in this area. When you go up a level, you can see this weird yellow line. You can build a ceiling there. It just covers the whole thing with a flat roof. So next, take one of these hipped roofs, different type this time, and put it in the left corner here of our little flat area and drag that out just so it like just about maybe a little bit more than covers our empty space, and then make it like basically completely flat. Drag it all the way down. You might want to drag it a little bit back further. I just don't want to see this line. I want to see the front line here, but I don't want to see it in the back. I want it to like blend in this corner nicely. You can drag out the edge pieces so it gets a little bit wider and has a bit of an overhang. And then I would take one of these half gabled roofs and put it just right in the front and line it up so it basically exactly matches what we just did. I want to like cover up this whole area. I'm going to take that half gabled roof and just drag it all the way back because I don't want to see those weird lines. I want it to look flat back here. I kind of like the line in the corner, but I don't want to see it on this half. If you don't like this piece, you could just use that half gabled roof all the way across and that would be totally fine. It looks good. That's kind of a personal preference thing. Again, roofing in The Sims oftentimes just requires a lot of trial and error and a lot of different pieces and dragging and moving them. The front of our reference picture actually has like a little dormer right here. I didn't include a second floor on this house because I thought it was maybe a little bit small for that, but we can still put a fake dormer to be decorative if we wanted to. If you don't like how this looks, you can even make the fake dormer bigger and like drag it all the way across if you'd like to. You have a lot of options for this. You can kind of do whatever you'd like with it. I like it being a little bit small, and if I'm being honest, I don't really love how this is looking. I had a vision in my head as we were building it, but now that I'm like executing it, I don't like it as much. So I'm kind of curious to maybe try a couple other options. We could always, if we wanted to, move that dormer over and then maybe try a different roof shape right here. Ooh, at that point, that looks bad. Okay, maybe we should make it flat. Maybe it should be flat. Maybe this is better. You could also, if you wanted to, do like 3 small dormers like this. Okay, in hindsight, mine don't really fit how I want them to. It's kind of a weird width of a house. You could do like 2 small 2-tile dormers, perhaps. That makes me want to raise this roof up a little bit and like make it a little bit taller so these roofs have some more room. I also kind of want a foundation again. I know I just had this whole thing about a garage, but I kind of want the foundation back. I am ever so slightly tempted to do it with just 1 dormer. So my final recommendation is to do just a half gabled roof like this. Just one big one flat across the top. Put a tiny 2-tile dormer up here in the middle and then have an extra big roof kind of filling in some of the open space. I realize I have not made this very easy to follow, but what I'm trying to do is just give you options. I want you to have a lot of options for things that might look nice. At this point, you can kind of do whatever color scheme you like. I'm not going to try and tell you how to paint the house. What I would suggest is using a nice roof trim on the outside. My favorite one is this square roof trim, but often this beveled out one is better because if you've got like interior stuff going on, if you're trying to have like an open stair landing, this one doesn't clip. This one is too wide, so it does clip. I explained that more in like my proper build tutorial that I linked down below for you. We don't have to worry about that in this build because there's nothing to clip, but just something to keep in mind. Try out different trims if you're seeing some weird clipping issues. I really like this fancy picket fence the best, so I'm gonna use that to fill in all of our empty holes here on our balcony, and I'm gonna get a nice plain white staircase and use the matching stair railing. We have a little bit more to do in the back, but I actually want to have less of a cover back here. So I'm imagining us putting a back door inside of this little bump out. I would probably encourage you to use like something simple, maybe like the sliding glass door, because you see that kind of thing a lot in real life. And the only place that I want to put roof on here is just over this tiny bump out. So I'm going to take our little tiny half gabled roof. I'm going to push it all the way down so it's flat, kind of drag it out so it covers all the space. And then I'm actually gonna get rid of the overhang. I don't really want the overhang here. I just want it to cover the entrance. So one teeny tiny little roof piece, and that I think is the whole back done. I might use that same matching fence and staircase back here, but that's pretty much all I would do with the roof. For windows, I want to use my favorite base game shuttered windows. These are really nice because there's a whole bunch of size variants of them. We've got big ones, we've got tiny ones, they've got shutterless windows that match. So it's a nice big set and we can use it to kind of cover the whole building. I want to have these big clapper windows in the biggest open sections. So this big triangle area in the front of the house, I want a big window there. This one over here, I'm actually going to put 2 windows on. At the top in our dormer, I want a shuttered window. Around the side, I might put a shuttered window up here. That's a window to nothing. There's no room up there, but it looks kind of nice to have. I'm gonna do 2 matching big windows in that primary bedroom, just like we did in the front. But I'm gonna be a little bit more careful about windows in the back here because I know that a lot of these areas are bathrooms. Like for example, this room right here is a bathroom. I don't want to have the most giant window there, so I might do a slightly smaller one and then put curtains on it. Not that it matters. Sims don't care about privacy, but sometimes it's fun for realism to pretend. I'm gonna use that same smaller shuttered window here by the dining table. I might do it again in the kitchen like this. And we have this huge, big, kind of generic looking garage. If you wanted, you could like extend the space again. Just like copy that roof over to the back and then copy the windows as well. Then in some of these middle, smaller spaces, I'm gonna use this octopane window. It's basically the same window that we have with shutters, just without them. And I'm gonna put that in some of the tinier areas, like right here. So we can get that over here in the front. And then here in the study, I might use the same big window again. If you wanted to, you could try and do a different like special window, maybe like one of these ones that have kind of like a cool windowsill on the inside. This version of the basic bay window has matching shutters, so you could always put that there on that big area. I would probably not put windows on this left side, but this big one has a lot of space. So I might put a small window up there, maybe like the little square one up in that top area. You might notice that I haven't put any windows on the sides of the house yet, and that's because I usually do the front windows first because I think the front windows, I care more about how it looks from the outside. On the sides of the building, I usually care more about how it looks from the inside. So for example, over here, I'm not too worried about having windows that are like nicely spaced out throughout most of the building. What I'm more worried about is having windows that are functional for the inside of the house. So I might put one window in the corner of the bathroom. I realize I have to fix this roof piece again because I added an extra one. And this doesn't look that good. Like, let's be honest with ourselves, that looks like not cute at all. And we could like maybe try something different to like center some windows over here. I feel like it just looks kind of sad from the inside though. So even if I add like a random window in the bathroom here, I'm not that worried about it looking kind of bad. You could always do a small window in the bathroom because that's kind of realistic. It's really up to you and how you want to furnish the house. You can always add more windows as you're doing the furnishings too. We did talk earlier about making the garage into extra bedrooms, so if you did want to go that route, I'd probably keep this section as a hallway. I might get like a little tiny 2x1 bathroom with just like a toilet and a sink, and then you have space for 2 more bedrooms and an extra bathroom over here. So depending on how you want to split it up, you could do it like that too. Again, I'm just trying to give you options so that you can try and recreate this nicely. This is currently what I have as the floor plan if you want to take a screenshot and try and recreate it if you lost track. Now I want to do some painting outside. So one of the things that I liked the most about this house was kind of the mix of textures. I don't know if you can tell, but they have some vertical paneling, some horizontal paneling, and some really nice stone. So I want to try to do that too. In our case, I want to grab this really beautiful country field stone in like a nice grayish color from the base game, and I'm gonna put that only on the 2 really fancy bump outs in the front of the building. So this big main one over here on the side and then one on the left side as well. I don't always really like to have that cover like entire big vast spaces. What I would do instead is have this just go up to the very end of that roof piece. And then I might put like a column there on the side to kind of mark the end of it as well. If you don't like the bathroom window, you can just delete it. Bathrooms don't need to have windows. And then you can do the same thing on the back where it kind of matches. But you see how I've sort of ended it here where like this little part starts? I only have the stone in a small space. That happens a lot in real life too, because obviously doing the stone is really expensive. So they oftentimes will have the stone only in the front facade. In real life, there might be no stone on the side at all. They would just have it in the front, just for like looks from the front. You don't have to do that in The Sims because money's not really a concern. This wallpaper costs $5 versus like maybe a paneling that costs $4. So it's not really a problem. You can do whatever you want in The Sims. But I think it's nice to try and mimic real life just a little bit. They also had kind of a mix of vertical and horizontal paneling. We have a couple options here. Number one is this pinstripe grains panel. The only problem with this, and I don't know if you can tell, but it doesn't line upright across a wall and a roof piece. The roof piece gets it kind of like off a little bit. So I don't like to do vertical paneling when there's roofs that are visible. I would put the vertical paneling more in areas like this where it's hidden, or like only on the roof where you don't have to worry about it lining up with anything. So you maybe could put the vertical paneling up there and then have horizontal paneling in most of the other areas. What I think I'm gonna do is put vertical paneling on this front bump out and then also in this middle section. And then I like this kind of wide paneling as well. So I'll use that in the other areas that we haven't painted yet. There's not really an exact science to this. It's kind of up to you. You don't really have to do this at all if you don't want to. You could also paint it all the same color. The other wallpaper that I think is really good for this is actually underneath the masonry category. It's this industrial interest wall. It's quite expensive. It's 12 simoleons each, but it has a perfectly matching horizontal and vertical wallpaper. They're like the same texture. So if you wanted to use that instead, the colors would match a little bit better across them. You wouldn't have like a weird disparity of white swatches not matching. I know that kind of always bothers me, so it's really just up to you and how you want to decorate it. You also don't have to paint it white. You could paint it whatever color. I'm just trying to give you some ideas. For the foundation on this, I might actually use this nice black brick because it kind of matches our shutters. This is just a nice plain base game brick foundation. And then if I were you, I would go through and kind of try to mimic whatever paneling you did on the front. I would just do it again in the back. Just kind of go through and take it and match it. Just kind of fill in all those empty wallpaper spaces that you've got. If you're seeing any weird places that seem kind of empty, you could maybe add another window up there. And then the last thing that I always like to do is use a column. I'm gonna use this base game mega basic column here because I only have the base game to work with. But if you have other packs, specifically this experienced pillar from Get Together, honestly, this op-ed column from Cats and Dogs, Snowy Escape has a nice plain white square column. Any sort of simple plain white square column, I like to use that on the edges. I'm basically trying to mimic like this edging that pops up, but the auto placement of it is terrible in this game. You see how it only does it on one side? So I'm trying to mimic that, except by using a column and doing it myself because I don't trust the game. The game does it in kind of a weird way, so I just do it myself with columns. I would go through and place those on all of the edges just to have like kind of a finishing touch on the sides. It does look kind of busy with this base game one, but this is my favorite of the base game columns for it. Some of the others are a little bit too much. I always hated how this one was round. If it were a square, I'd like it better, but that one could work too. Just a nice round plain edge piece there. That kind of comes down to personal preference. You don't have to do the same columns as me. You can do whatever you'd like. But we're basically done with most of the exterior. I want now to go pick a roof shingle. I would probably use just like a plain black shingle on this house to match all of our black accents. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want, but that would probably be my pick for this. The reference picture that we had originally had like a nice metal roof that they were using, so you could do a metal roof if you wanted to. It really comes down to whatever texture you prefer. I don't often use the metal roofs. Maybe I'll do that one today. I don't know. It's up to you. Do whatever you'd like. I would probably put some sort of deck on the front porch as well. I quite like this EcoCraft hardwood as a flooring to use. Sometimes I'll use a wood color just to have like some variation in color and then use the same on both the front and the back decks. Make sure you don't forget to paint like the little tiny pieces on these half gabled roofs, by the way. You don't want to leave that blank. I was gonna say you don't want to leave it bald. I guess it is bald, but you don't want to leave it bald. And then once you've put roof trim in, sometimes you can see pieces like this that kind of get messed up. There's like a little tiny gap right there. I'll hold shift and then drag this corner out just so I can blend it in. And I'll go through and paint all the roof pieces everywhere, all the same color. And this is sort of what our exterior is looking like so far. If you're not doing a garage, you can put this anywhere on the lot that you want. I might try and center it. And then I like to use this cheap base game fence. It's just called a simple fence. It's one of the cheapest ones in the game. I might use that and just fence in a really huge backyard because we have a ton of space back here. Oops. You can make it however big you want it to be, but you can just fence in a whole bunch of space. This one, annoyingly, does not have a matching gate for whatever reason. And the only gate that kind of matches is not plain white. It comes in blue, which I don't really like. So sometimes I'll just delete part of this and then leave it open instead of having an actual closed off gate. Most times those floor plan websites don't really give you a lot of ideas to work with for the backyard, because a lot of times in real life the houses are just plain flat in the backyard. We don't really want that, so we had to kind of make our own thing up. If I were you, I might try and get a big patio area in like part of the backyard. You can sort of space this out however you want. It depends what you need and like what kind of money your Sims have. This might be a good spot to get a pool and kind of put that in the corner. If you did that, you could maybe put a bar and grill over in this section. This area right here is actually a good spot for a built-in bar, I would say. I probably wouldn't use these counters, but just to kind of show you what I'm talking about, sometimes it can be fun to like build a built-in in the back. I'll oftentimes like kind of blend it into this grill and like scoot the grill backwards a little bit, and then you could get a matching bar. It could be a smaller bar than this, but you could do something like that and have a cool built-in cooktop area, put a small table here. There could be lounge chairs here. It really depends what your Sims need and what they like to do. If you've got other packs, there's a huge backyard. There's space to put things like maybe the tree house. You could have a cool garden area. I'm gonna build something small just to give you sort of a layout concept. Sometimes I'll even shrink the backyard if I've got too much space, because you can always extend it if your Sims get more money later, but sometimes it's nice to have like a slightly smaller one to work with. We'll come back to landscaping, but I'm gonna leave a little bit of grass here to put some flowers in. And like I mentioned, if I were you, I might put a small pool back here. I might do it just like in this area. It can be however big you want, however big your Sims can afford, but this way you've got a little bit of space for a couple of lounge chairs right here. Sometimes it's nice to just have like 2 of them. If you've got packs, a lot of the packs have nice big umbrellas that you could put down in between them, so you can have a little bit of shade. Might want to do something like that. Ooh, scratch the original idea I had. You could always put the bar down here, like in front of the pool. This is a significantly cooler spot to have the bar. I don't know which one you'd want to use. It depends how you're trying to decorate it, but you could have like a cool bar and grill combo here. And then also space for a pretty big dining table, maybe here in the center. I might put like some monkey bars and some other kid stuff over here in the grass space that we have. There is a lot of space on the patio, so if you wanted, you could try and put maybe like some really cute planter boxes sort of tied in here. There's a bunch of really nice gardening sort of clutter too, like this hose you could put on the wall. So that's probably how I would try to fill out and lay out this backyard. Oftentimes I'll end up putting things like chess tables, maybe like a telescope. I don't know. This video is not really about furnishing. Today's video is more about layouts and like how to build an exterior. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is landscaping. The first thing we're gonna do is put some really big trees. My favorite are these giant oak trees. I like to kind of pepper these around the corners of the lot while being careful to make sure it's not clipping with the house too much, but I'm gonna put some really big oak trees just kind of around like this. Sometimes I'll size down landscaping as well. You can press the left bracket key to size it down and get a little bit of size variation. I'm just gonna put those kind of around most of the house. I may also scoot the house back just a tiny bit. I want a little bit more front yard up here. So I'm gonna put a mailbox right now before I forget, just right on the edge of this path. I'm also gonna put a trash can back here kind of by the edge of the patio. My favorite plant to landscape with is this hedgerow. It's really simple. It's nice and wide, but it's nice to just go through and like fill in some spaces with this. So I'm gonna wrap it around a couple of the areas. I might have it go all the way up to the very edge of the house back here. It does kind of pose a problem sometimes when you have all these weird bump outs because like the regular size is too big. You could try and size it down. You could also just like wrap it around the edge too over here if you wanted to. Sometimes I also like getting a couple smaller trees to like put in the front of the building and block off parts of the house. I might get a couple of these and have one size down next to it. And this is one of those things also that really comes down to personal preference. I won't tell you what plants to use. It really depends what you like to do. But for me, a lot of times I like to try and layer my landscaping a lot. So I'll take those bushes in the back and then I'll get some of these like low-lying flowers and I'll try and fill in a bit of an area that I want to landscape with flowers. And I'll use those as like the front lining of the landscaping. So you can kind of just put those anywhere. The thing about this is that you're trying to make it look natural. So it's okay if it's not perfectly even. You can really do whatever. And then I might pick another bush that's like a good filler size. So like this one might be good as a filler bush. This is the unkempt shrubbery wide. I also like this green fern as a filler bush. If you have other packs, I have recently been very interested in one of the bushes from Cats and Dogs. This one's kind of cool as a filler bush. It's got like some different color and texture to it. And what I would do is just take that and kind of like layer it in for some extra greenery, depending on what you want to use. For the sake of this build being base game, I'm going to use this plain one instead. But I just try and fill that in some of the like bigger, wider spaces. And then you can pick any flower. My favorite one, I use it all the time, are these hydrangeas. You totally don't have to use this, but I would take these or some other flower. You can like kind of size them down different ways. You can rotate them around a little bit to try and make them look like they're different bushes, because the problem is they're all the same. They're like little clones of each other. So by doing like the size variations and like various rotating, you try and make it look a bit more like they're unique, different flowers. They're not, but you can try and make them look like that. I did a whole video on landscaping once, so I can link that down below for you too if you want to watch it. Or you can just Google it. I don't really remember what it's called right now, but like lilsimsie landscaping tutorial or something might come up. I was trying mostly to focus on floor plans in this build. So anyway, if I were you, I'd probably try and do some similar things back in the back of the lot as well. Just get some bushes, layer some stuff together. I left this part here open to maybe put some flowers in so we could try and line it up a little bit. I like to rotate those around all different directions too to try and make them look more unique. And then you could maybe line that somehow with a fence. We have these cute little metal ones that kind of fit our black color scheme. We could always use that. I might put some terrain paint under it so it all blends in a little bit nicer. And you can put as many flowers as you want to. I think it's always nice to have them kind of like lining up against the house. And then the other tip that I often go for, and you don't have to do this, it's kind of just my style, I guess, is that I like to have the flowers match in color. If I'm gonna do a variety of styles of flower like I'm doing over here, I like to have them all be the same color. But that really depends on your personal preference and like what you like to build and the style of house you're trying to build. There's no like easy, obvious answer for what the best way to landscape is. It really depends on what you like to do. But I think it looks kind of cool with all the same color flowers everywhere. In this case, I have obviously chosen a kind of purple theme. I might just go through and get a couple extra flowers back here. And then the last thing I would do is go in and add terrain paint everywhere. I like to use this Smart Starter soil, and I get like a kind of light brush, light and small. So like really soft. I like to just go through and softly add in a little bit of dirt down. And this is kind of a personal style choice too, because you might like a darker dirt or like more dirt. I kind of like it to be soft like this. And I just go through and put a little bit of dirt underneath all of the landscaping, and sometimes kind of like surrounding the edges of the house. I'm almost trying to give it dimension and like paint the edges a little bit darker. So I go through and do that everywhere. If I were you, I would probably encourage you to do terrain paint last, like last, absolute last thing you do, because this game is really glitchy and annoying, and there's a really common bug where terrain paint deletes itself. So just do it last so you don't have to worry about that happening to you. I won't tell you how to furnish the inside of the house because that really comes down to personal preference too. I mostly just wanted to give you some ideas of where you could put things, but this is kind of what I was picturing for the main layout of the house. I'd be really curious if you all wanted to like share your builds. If you did something like this and you wanted to share it, I'd love to see what you make. Maybe we could use like hashtag lilsimsie tutorial or something so we can see what everybody builds if we try and follow this. You don't have to do that, but if you want to share it, you're welcome to do it. I'd love to see. I'm also going to put this up on the gallery for you if you want to use mine as like a starting point. I'm not here to force you to build something, so if you get overwhelmed and you don't want to use your version, I will upload mine for you. I'm also going to put a couple little lights outside just so we have some light around the porches. Perhaps I'll get a gnome. Just like one little tiny gnome. Just right here. The only decor I add is the Grim Reaper. So this ended up being a 5-bed, 3-bathroom house the way that I have uploaded it, but I've given you some options for different things you could try. So it is officially up on the gallery with that hashtag lilsimsie tutorial if you want to use it. And I think on that note, I'm gonna end this video right here. Hopefully this was helpful to you. I'm gonna give you one last look at the full floor plan in case you wanna screenshot it with the grid so you can try and copy it. And if you like this sort of content, let me know, because I can try to do some more helpful sort of tutorial style content more if you like it. We can also try and do stuff that maybe has 1 or 2 packs. We could do like a cats and dogs only build or something together if you wanted to try that. So just give me some feedback in the comments. Is it even helpful? Is it interesting? I don't know. And I am gonna catch you all tomorrow. Okay, bye everybody. The fact that I spent so long on this and it's not even furnished is kind of embarrassing, but I was going slow on purpose because I was trying to show you how to do it. I was trying to walk you through all the steps, but it's like hours of recording and it's not even furnished.